Hello. Since I was late, totally my fault. I had a hard time with the invite messenger, but I see Mr. Stockton has arrived. So without further ado, let's get this party started. Get in here, you old rattlesnake.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Turn up just a titch. Or maybe it's me.
Let's
We
see.
could both turn up. How's he sounding? We all 5-5
As
there?
far
Can you
as you
guys
can.
hear?
I'm using a spare camera tonight, the one that I
That
normally
works.
use is iPhone 13 Pro Max. It had come unplugged and it was low battery, so it's charging. It might be back up by the time I do
It's
this here.
okay.
So
You
I got
sound
this.
wonderful.
This is a spare. It's the same microphone, just a different camera. So it's a
Hmm.
slightly different angle than what you're used to seeing. I don't like the angle
I
as
like
well,
you at
but
any angle,
here,
Steve.
here I am. A little too close to it, I think. But anyway. Good to see everybody. We'll say hi to Midnight Society. Love you,
Hi, Midnight
sweetheart.
Society. Hello to everybody.
That's,
Let's say hi to everybody. Hey, Jack. Hey, Kathleen,
I gotta
Bernice,
say hi
Ted,
to her first.
D Rock,
Let me
Glenn.
get
Glenn
where
is
I can
here.
see the
Glenn
chat
Dennison,
here.
Laura. Let's see who else
Whatever
we've
reason,
got.
I can't
Vixen
see all
Doe.
this.
You got it.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up on
Midnight
YouTube over here in
Society
a
is
minute.
here.
The
Laura
screen.
Elizabeth. Welcome, Uncommon Belief. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think that catches it. Let's see. I think there's other people here too. They're just not in the chat yet. Paranormal. Oh, that's me. I almost said hello to myself. Only saw part of it. My tea is
Okay, I
blocking.
got it pulled up
I
on
think we're
YouTube
good. We'll
over
catch
here.
them. We'll catch them as we go through. It's going to be fun. Hey, Kathy, welcome in. Welcome in. Everybody's welcome. We have the most wonderful mods here, um, Black Ops mods. So if you have any questions that I don't see, thanks, Jack 55. He says we're good. If you have any questions that Steve and I don't see, or if you want to know what the bacon means or something else, just ask one of these mods. They are fantastic with the information, and you just didn't get any better. Absolutely wonderful people. And welcome to our live chat. We are here tonight. And we are here tonight talking about a little bit of history. I thought it was good to have a little bit of all the beauty that's in the ocean, because tonight we're kind of talking about the kind of the darker side of the ocean and some of the things that are in there. And it's kind of like, it's not unlike going in the woods and running into a bear, Steve, or
Yeah,
going into the
absolutely.
jungle and getting jumped on by a tiger, or the Amazon, you get strangled by a python, or is that an anaconda? One of them
Either
squeezes
one.
you.
One of them will get you. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's just there's other stuff out there bigger than you are and meaner than you are when you get in the woods. You're no
it's
longer
true.
the apex predator.
Exactly. And you might just disappear and we're not even sure what's causing that. We've got our ideas, but
I've
we
got three whole books with
I
there's a whole
know.
channel full of stuff like that.
I know. And it's like we don't even know. I mean, if they disappeared, we don't know where they are. We don't see them anymore. And of course, if we know them, we mourn them and we wonder what happened. I think that's the worst part, because they're gone and you don't know. They could be alive in some other kind of, they could be in a, Lord knows where,
It
you
could be a
know?
time slip or a portal or
Yep.
maybe just a big hole in the woods that an old strip mine pit or something. Who knows?
You never know. You never know. And I think that's the hardest part. But people do go out in, the ocean. I think Vixen Doe was talking about living close to the water and knowing people that are fishermen and lobster, Maine lobster people. We've all seen the shows with, Perfect Storm, and, the Edmund Fitzgerald, and how many different ships that have gone down. And we've heard of some rescues, but it's such a horrible thing, and I don't think I've ever been able to get it out of my mind. Being Most of my childhood was in and around New Jersey and Virginia, being close to the water. And I was talking last night in my book. I've got a story about, it was one of those times where I just wasn't really sure what happened, but now I can look back and say it was most assuredly a near death experience. I was out of my body, watching my body be tossed, caught in the undertow. I could see, like when a wave goes by and it catches like seaweed, and you might have a crab leg in there and a horseshoe crab tossling around. And, I was
Or
right there with it all. And
jellyfish.
my
I've had that
chin,
happen.
yeah, every time I went, I was going backwards and my chin would rake on the bottom of the sand, and I still have the scar from it right across the bottom of my chin. And that's what really stuck with me after the fact, that like, my gosh, that really happened. So it was something I couldn't really deny, but I wasn't really sure. But that kept me out of the water for a while, and that was in the beginning. That was the end of 74. No, yes, it was the end of 74, and that year I got a copy of Jaws by Peter Benchley. It was everywhere, the paperback. And then after that, it wasn't long before Spielberg jumped on it and made the movie Jaws. It came out in 75. And somebody else said they saw it in the theater here when they were like 13. I believe I was like 12. And I'll tell you what, we went, and I went with my friend. I'll still remember, in Deep Creek, Virginia. We went down to the beautifully modern Deep Creek Mall, if you can imagine. And it was a theater, and her dad took us, and he was so cool. I still remember him. And he let us sit up front, and he sat in the back, kept his eye on us. And when that head come bobbing out of that boat at that diver, when they, in the very beginning, I must have jumped 3 feet, 4 feet in the air, Steve. It was something. That movie was absolutely
I
something. Did you
remember when
see
that
it?
movie came out, people lined up around the block to see it. I knew people that didn't even want to swim in their pool
Right.
because of Jaws. It was the rational fear that it caused people. And
100%.
a lake, there might be a freshwater shark. I don't even know if there is such a thing.
Well, we're going to do a story next Monday that tells just about that, in Matawan Creek, who is deeper than it is now. But absolutely. And for years, and that was in 1916, and we'll tell that story next, because I've got the book
Yeah,
right
that's
here,
right.
and you can see how thick it is. I need a little more time to read it and get some good pictures out of it and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff. But it
Absolutely.
does tell the story of that shark coming down Matawan Creek. And like I said, it was deeper than it is now. It was a port for, it was outside of a mill. And again, I'll get you more. Oh, do you, from the creek over in Kathy, here in Jersey, the Matawan Creek, or another one? But they kept saying it was a bull shark because they could handle being in a brine water. But the author here, Dr. Richard Fernicola, I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and I'm trying to get a hold of him, see if he'll come on. Oh, really? Do you? That's wonderful. And so, gosh, maybe you could grab us some pictures or something. That would be wonderful. Email them to me, and we'll share them out if you want to. That's just, I was going to try to get out there, and I wanted to go to the Rose Hill Cemetery. I believe it's Rose Hill Cemetery, where some of the victims were buried, and they have a memorial there and stuff. But if I can't get that, oh, have you? Kathy's been to their graves. So, well, for years they were telling us it was a bull shark. But Dr. Fernicola, after a lot of research and talking to a lot of other shark experts, said that there is absolutely no reason to not believe it wasn't a juvenile great white. So because they're more adaptable to that, and they like to go off away from everything to get their feel for getting larger, you know, uh, food, basically, because there's such a battle for that. Everything's fighting
And
for survival.
people talk a lot of trash about sharks, but that's just if they're doing what comes as their nature. That would be no different if you're sitting there in your living room and a
Hmm.
hamburger walked through and you ate it. They see you as food. That's
Hmm.
they're going to eat it.
Yeah.
And as far as them attacking surfers, I saw a graphic one time where it had what a sea lion or something looks like in the water, and if you look at that silhouette, that outline from under the water, of course, the water's moving and it's weird. Somebody on a surfboard with their arms out paddling,
Hmm.
it looks similar to a sea lion
Seal.
or seal or whatever they eat there.
100%.
So you can't hate on the shark.
There you go. There you go. Well, I could stay away from them, Steve, because I
Yeah,
don't think I went back in the
and,
water. I
and
mean,
they do run them out back into the deeper water when they come in close to shore like that. I've
yeah.
been there. I've been in the Outer Banks when they've had the shark warnings and stuff out.
I can remember being sitting. We were in the same place. I've told the story where my mom and I were having a picnic at Shark River Park, and you could sit at Shark River Park and look across the river, and you could see Asbury, all Asbury Park, all the buildings and stuff, and that's where we first knew that there were riots in '68 because everything was on fire and just smoke was just billowing from everywhere. But at that same park, we used to go and you could swim, in the little river that came up there on the tiny little beach they had, and then there was a marina and ports and everything. It was really nice. But there was a fence. It was a metal chain link fence. It was under the water. And my mom told me that there's no sharks in there. And I said, well, why is it named Shark River? You couldn't convince me. One side, she said, well, they put up a big metal fence. And you know what? They did that in 1916 as well. Now the fence had been run over and anything and everything could get in there, but yeah, you couldn't convince me. And I was one of those people that if I was in a pool, my eyes were closed or I had chlorine in or something, something bump into me, I'd lose my mind. I just absolutely cannot stand. It was hard to do do the video I got coming up because I had to look at sharks so much. But I figured if we were going to do it, we might as well do it because it's there's just so much to these stories, and I just wanted to make sure I got a little bit of information out there to you and open this up. It's definitely going to be a two-parter because I want to take the rest of this week to finish reading the book and see if I can get Dr. Fernicola to call in. That would be great. He lives not very far from me. And yeah, it was a summer blockbuster. It was the hit until Star Wars came out. But I've got a little bit of that information. If you guys are ready to see a video, you want to see some sharks and a little bit of
thought you were going to
factoids
say
about sharks.
something else. You want to see some sharks?
Yeah, it's like just and
Yeah.
who has did this? Boom 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 boom. That's that music. And you are absolutely right, Kathleen. The shark was, if you've got the if you had the joy of watching the DVD director's cut of Jaws, which I have, you have all those extras in there and everybody talking
And
about it.
yeah, that's the
And you hear,
best part
I
sometimes.
know
You hear them
the
describing
shark
it.
is not working. The shark is not working. That's all you'd hear.
You know the
But
shark's name, the mechanical shark.
Bruce,
Yep, you
Bruce,
got
and it was named after Spielberg's lawyer,
it.
which I
He's
thought
a
was funny as
shark.
all get out.
That's
I
funny.
thought it was so
And now,
funny.
even at that, it's not there anymore, but they used to have the Jaws ride at Universal Studios.
Oh
That
wow.
thing was scary. And
Oh,
you knew there's a fake shark in there, but there were just certain parts of it, like where you go through the boathouse and the guide's like calling your attention to something over here. But on this side of the boat, you see that fin go by and
oh,
it's
I
dark in there.
can't.
And then when that shark pops out of the water, people would scream and just lose their minds, knowing that it was going to be a jump scare, knowing that it was a fake shark, but it was just that terrifying.
Gosh, I can't,
And it
that's
combines so many fears: deep water, dark water where you can't see the bottom, dark water,
mm,
the fear of
mm,
what's in the water that you
mm.
can't see. I have that fear. I
I
won't
do too.
swim in a lake or the ocean if I can't touch
Can't
the
see my
bottom
feet.
because I don't know what's down there.
Honey, I'll
And
jump out of the tub if the soap bumps into my ankle. I'm not joking. I mean, I'm telling you, I have this fear, and this book did it. I was fine till then, and you'd think it may have been because of the timeline. I look back, and it may have been, of course, the NDE, but I can remember going in pools and not having had a problem with that. It was just the undertow. I mean, it's so strong out here in certain
well,
parts of the coast.
yeah, I got caught in
But
one of
it's the
those
sharks.
undertows one time off the Outer Banks. I had a little boogie board, and it was pulling me out to sea.
It's incredible.
I knew what to do though. You got in there and you swam with it, and I
Yeah,
eventually got out of it. But I was about
right.
2 miles down the beach from where I started.
It's
But what
incredible.
happens? You get people get out there and they panic, and you try to fight it. There ain't no fighting a riptide or an undertow.
True, true,
And if I
true.
had had that
And the
boogie board, I would have
sandbars,
had trouble.
you'll
Now,
be walking and all of a sudden you're down,
yeah,
and all that. But horrible. And I'll tell you, they made a movie, a documentary that Dr. Fernicola was consultant on. Is basically based on his book. And he said he's generally happy with it. There was some things that it's kind of like watching the Titanic, the Rose and Jack character wasn't real, but everything that happened around
yeah.
and around that was. And it's similar to that. They had to put a couple characters in there, but yeah, I mean, just watching that was hard. because this is
But
one of
you have
mine where,
movies like that. You have iconic movies. There were people that wouldn't shower after watching Psycho. Uh,
mm,
I knew people that after they saw the first Halloween, friend of mine, his sister went down in the
wouldn't
basement
carve a pumpkin.
and wouldn't go anywhere in the house without a, a butcher knife. And he had a heavy bag down there, a boxing bag, and
Hmm.
she bumped into it. Of course, it swung out and swung back. And then when it hit her, she put a butcher knife in it. So
Yeah, I
you
don't
have
blame her.
movies like
I
that
used
that
to shower with a 357 in a Ziploc. Pop the trigger right through it.
you never know. That's
You
one of
never
those
know.
things. You're vulnerable.
I mean,
When you're
I'm
in
going
the
to tell
shower,
you,
when you're on the toilet. I've been in places where I've had a nine in my pocket and kept my hand on it while I was sitting on the john. Because
just in
somebody
case.
comes through that door, say hello to my little friend. No, the
Yep.
other one in my pocket.
Exactly. But I think I don't know what it is. I have I hate that people are messing with them. And I know we went through that time. I hope it's kind of over with the poachers and the shark fins and all that stuff. But, who hasn't seen the iconic picture? And I should have pulled it up here. Maybe I can get it for next week of in the Ripley's Believe It or Not, where the guy's sitting in the jaws of the shark. Do you remember that
Yeah,
picture? We've seen it
yeah.
as kids 1,000 times,
And I've
It's
seen the
just
fake
incredible.
ones where they've taken a replica of the sharks or great white's jaws, and it is big enough for a child. I mean, just to stand in there and look dwarfed by it. But even a
Mm.
good sized shark can eat your whole head, so it doesn't take much.
Oh, yeah.
And have you ever found those shark's teeth on the beach? I've found
Yes.
some of those that are prehistoric, like megalodon or whatever, but they're
Mhm.
that big. But even the regular shark's teeth, and if you look at
Mhm.
their mouth, they've got like three rows of teeth,
Rose.
and they're angled back.
They
When
just
they get a hold
replace.
of, yeah,
Oh,
they
and
they
they
re,
just
re
it's an
And I've
amazing
heard
it
that
is an
sharks don't
eating
sleep. I
machine.
don't know if that's true, but
Hey,
they
froze.
don't they don't sleep, and supposedly they don't get cancer. That's why people take shark cartilage or did.
Hmm.
Yeah, well,
And that's
Laura, I do
also
that
good for
too. If
animals.
I've got a
Mhm.
non-translucent shower curtain, I will look in there before I get in the shower. I also
Mhm.
look
Mhm.
in the back seat of my car and underneath the car because you never know. There's some
Yep.
wackos out there.
Yep. Ain't it something? But it's also so neat how um the 1916 shark attacks were absolutely the inspiration for Peter Benchley's book and then the movie Jaws. And you can really see parallels between them. And I pulled out some things tonight, and I'm going to show some more clips tonight too. But here's a video. It's going to give you a couple of facts on sharks. The biggest fact is Cisco's scared to death of them. I went to my son and I went to a place up here in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. Um, oh gosh, I know it as well as my own name. Terrible with names. I have to stop thinking about it and think of something else to remember. Jenkinson's. And in there, they have an absolutely wonderful, you're ever in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, I highly recommend bring the kids, bring the family. It's lovely the way they've got it all set up. I didn't know they had sharks and they had feeding time for the sharks. And I'm watching these kids walk across this board. It's kind of like it almost looks like a gangplank, like the pirates used to make you walk the plank. It looked
Mhm.
like that, had nothing but a little chain on it, and they're taking all these fish and feeding them to the sharks with these big old sticks. And I'm thinking, I was nauseous, had to get out of there. I'll walk into a dark cellar that's got, negative entities and God knows what else in it, and with a big old smile on my face. I'm not going in the water. Just it's not happening. I don't even like flying if I'm going over the ocean because if that plane goes down, let me tell you something. Don't fly with me because I will walk on your head to stay out of that water. I promise you. All bets are off. It's going to happen. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Walk on your head. I do
Yeah.
that sometimes when I fly. I want the seat by the wing, and they'll say, "Well, if you sit here, will you help people get off the plane?" Oh yeah, I asked to be the first one down that slide. And I'll be, come on,
Yep.
you can do it. I did it. Come on, come on, come on.
I will pick the first person that looks like they're going to float a little bit, and that's who I'm sticking to. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna rise you. You go down. I'll get another one. I just have no control. I just like a crazy, like I'd be like an insane chipmunk or something inside of the water. I just don't like it. So, yeah, on the boardwalk, absolutely, Kathy, absolutely. So, here's a little vid. It's 3-4 minutes long, But it's going to put a little bit of the scenes from the movie. It's going to have a little bit of information, a little bit of factoids about sharks, because I think they need to be respected the same way. Like I said, if you're going into the forest or the woods or whatever, and there's bear, come on, now you're going in their territory. You can't really blame them for that. But again, I'll tell you, one of the scariest things, I saw a lot in Sandy. We went through a lot for weeks through that. I mean, ambulances coming, and my neighbor had a stroke and died and drowned in his own kitchen. No, it's not Leonard Nimoy, but it's better. It's Richard Dreyfuss and the wonderful guy who played Quint and Sheriff Brody and it's a great movie. I hope they never remake it because it'll just make me sick. I'll for one will never watch it. I don't think this can be replaced. The book was good. I think it had a lot of gratuitous sex in there that it didn't need to be, and I'm glad they didn't put it in the movie because it was just, even as a 12-year-old reading it, I'm like, this doesn't need to be in it. This is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. But I'm glad they didn't put it in the movie. Hey, there you go. You look closer.
There we go. Yeah, this is the one that was run down, and I got it charged back up enough to turn it on. It's still charging, but I prefer it over.
I'm catching up to you, Steve. Look. I'm catching up to you. I'll tell you what, by the end of summer, I'm going to be just as gray as you. We're going to look like twins. But I wore my little Navy cap tonight in memoriam for the wonderful Indianapolis and the people. I've got my heart for vets is just, it breaks my heart. It really does. I remember my sister was in the Navy, and why she chose that, I don't know. But she was 6 months outside of Saigon during Vietnam, and she was a photographer. And, it's just, I can't imagine going down like that and not having anybody know where you were. But I'll let that come next. This one is a little more fun. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Newsflash.
Richard Dreyfuss was so good at this. Roy Schneider.
They all were.
Now I'm gonna have to go watch it again.
I know, me too.
Midnight Society. Have you ever
Oh,
seen Jaws? We can watch that one together. We'll put it on the list.
there you go.
We got a list of so many movies.
There's your smile. Well, there you go. Just a little look into it. Does that bring back memories? Yep. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Uh huh. That was the scene that scared me.
I want to go
Now,
watch
see,
that
Glenn, it was the
director's
head
cut.
bobbing out of the underwater when the big hole, the first boat that was taken down, and the diver found it. I think it was Richard Dreyfuss, wasn't it? When I think he was the diver that the head bobbed out. That's when I jumped. I mean, I jumped so many times during the movie the first time. It was just, oh my goodness. Gentle giants and whale shark. Yes, yes, they are. And again, when I'm listening to these people talking about that, just gives me the heebie-jeebies. But it's also a respect to them. I mean, they've been around forever. They're just eating machines. Some sharks have to keep swimming. They don't sleep. They have to keep swimming to keep the water going through, and they just keep going and going and going. I thought it was very interesting the part about why they call them the silent killer, because they don't make any noises. They don't.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, dolphins, plenty of talking. I mean, gosh, they can almost communicate and have. I think.
Now,
But
I don't know
there it
what
is.
kind of- But have you ever eaten shark?
Yes, once.
I have. Again, I don't know what kind it was, but
Very
I thought it'd
gamey.
be real gamey and real fishy. But whatever I had, it reminded me more of, say, lobster tail or something like that. It was
Did it?
whatever I had was good. So I'm sure there's
Hmm.
different kinds.
I was working at Red Lobster. We tried all kind of things. To me, it tasted
Yeah,
almost exactly like the
and
alligator, but who knows
yeah,
what they do to it.
I had shark tacos too. Those are good.
There you go. There you go. I mean, yeah. Yep, that's true, Kathleen. They're needed for balance as long as I'm not their dinner. Exactly. But gosh, how scary. And one of the scariest things that comes up in the movie, we all know the iconic scene where Quint is telling the story. They're all sitting around drinking and they're talking about I think they were having what we call scar wars. It's like I got this cut from this. I got this, this scar from this, and everybody's telling their scars. And they had that funny joke about right here, such and such broke my heart. And then they noticed the tattoo on Quint's arm from the USS Indianapolis, and he tells the story. So it's such a profound soliloquy, basically, of him getting in there and the way he's speaking it, the way he says it, the way his eyes are fixed when he's talking about it. When you can remember when he talks about the shark's eyes, like dark and round like a doll's eyes, the way he says it, everything he says is just so profound. And that character is based on a real character from 1916. And it's amazing how much it's just taken and morphed into this movie and the book. So I thought it would be interesting to hear the story, and that's kind of in memoriam tonight, is dedicated, of course, to all vets. Memorial Day is coming up. I'm a vet. If you're a vet out there, thank you for your service. A lot of my family, my granddaddy, my daddy, my sister, myself, all of us. And, the stories of when people say, thank you for being a hero, the first thing anybody I know says is no. We know heroes. I'm not one. These guys, what they went through is unimaginable. So the only way I could tell it was to get one of them to tell it. And I was lucky enough to find a radio interview from one of the survivors on BBC Radio. And I have that for you tonight. Steve, are you ready? Do you know about the Indianapolis? Have you heard a little bit?
Yeah, I think I've heard this interview before. It's fascinating. It's compelling.
It is absolutely fascinating. So, without further ado, let's play it so we can talk about it. And God bless this guy. I'm all for, there's so many people I know doing things for, the World War II vets that are still here, and there's still some around, I'll tell you.
There's
and
few
Korean,
my dad.
yeah.
My dad was a World War II vet. He would be 102 this year if he was still alive. So,
right.
there's not a lot of
them. There isn't, and they have a lot of these flights that, they've never been to, say, like the memorial in Washington, D.C. So whether, they'll take and they'll pay for the flight and they'll escort them and take them through and put them in a hotel and stay with them so they can go and see these. And it's great when they can get together. This guy has passed, and it's in his honor, and everybody that was with him that made it through or didn't. So without further ado, here we go.
I'll be back. I'm going to grab my coffee.
Witness, the history programme from the BBC World Service. Today we go back to the last days of the Second World War, when a US warship was sunk in the Pacific. The sailors who survived the sinking spent 4 days adrift in shark-infested waters. Lowell Dean Cox has been speaking to Alex Last about his horrific ordeal.
It's July 1945. The Second World War in Europe is over, but in the Pacific, the fighting goes on.
There can be no peace in the world until the military power of Japan is destroyed.
It was Japan's final hour. From hard-won Okinawa, from the carrier-based planes of the 3rd and 5th Fleets, Japan came under the inevitable reign of ruin. Allied sea forces moving up to the Japanese home island shelled the mainland.
I went on duty at 12 midnight, and we were hit probably about 10 minutes past midnight. First torpedo hit.
Lowell Dean Cox, LD to his friends, was on the bridge of the American warship, the USS Indianapolis, when it was attacked by a Japanese submarine in the Pacific Ocean on the 30th of July, 1945.
Boom, up in the air I went, tremendous explosion, and I hit on my stomach on that steel deck and started to get up, and when I did, I looked up and there was water, debris, fire, everything coming up, and we were 81 feet from the water line. And then about the time I got to my knees, boom, another one hit, and it hit midships, and it all blew and nearly divided the ship in 2 pieces.
With fires raging and the Indianapolis beginning to roll onto its side, the order came to abandon ship. LD, wearing a life jacket, clambered onto the top side and tried to jump into the water.
I missed the first deck, but I hit the hull and then bounced into the water. Then I began to swim away from the ship, and at about 50 yards I turned and looked back, and the ship was headed straight down. You could see men jumping from the stern, and you could see the 4 propellers still turning. 12 minutes. Can you imagine a ship 610 feet long, that's 2 football fields in length, sinking in 12 minutes? It just rolled over and went under.
The USS Indianapolis had just completed a special secret mission, delivering parts of the first atomic bomb to the Pacific island of Tinian, where American B-29 bombers were based. It was on its way to Leyte in the Philippines with 1,197 men on board when it was hit. It did not have sonar to detect submarines. The captain had asked for an escort, but his request was turned down. Nor did the Navy pass on the vital information that Japanese submarines were active along his planned route. The Indianapolis was all alone when it sank.
I swam out and came upon one single man. He says, "Is this you, Cox?" He was a real close buddy of mine aboard that ship, and he had been flash burned, and he didn't last very long. I never saw a life raft. We didn't get any boats off. I finally heard some moans and groans and yelling, and I swam over until I got with a little group of about 30 men, and that's where I stayed.
Did you talk to each other?
We did. The first 2 days, there was a lot of chatter, a lot of talk, and then our tongues and our mouths got dry and the tongue swelled, and we had very little to say to one another. It just mostly floating, and every day the life preserver got waterlogged, and you just barely could keep your face and nose out of the water. We figured that if we could just hold out a couple of days, well, we'd be rescued.
The Indianapolis had in fact sent SOS signals before it sank, but somehow the messages were ignored, not taken seriously by the US Naval Command. Even when the ship failed to arrive on time, little notice was taken. About 900 survivors of the initial torpedo attack were left drifting in small groups in the expanse of the Pacific Ocean, but in the sea beneath them, a new danger was lurking.
The first minute you hit the water, you're thinking sharks. We saw sharks aboard our ship some, and we understood sharks, and we understood how deadly they were. From the time we were in the water, we had a dread for the sharks.
When was the first time that you saw sharks?
We were sunk at midnight, and I saw one the first morning after daylight. They were big. Some of them, I'd swear, were 15 feet long. They all looked big in that water. When they got underneath you, circling around, they really looked large. They were continually there, and most of them were feeding off of dead bodies. Thank goodness. Well, we had lots of dead people floating in the area, of course.
But before long, they came for the living too.
2 or 3 or 4 a night, and of a day, the sharks were taking us. And you were constantly in fear because you'd see them. You'd see them all the time. Every few minutes you'd see their fins, and you'd see up to a dozen or 2 dozen fins in the water. You could look down and you could see them swimming below you. They'll come up and bump you. I was bumped a few times. You never know when they're going to attack you and bite you. They're just a wonder of nature, and if they're hungry, they'll eat a little of you, and if they're not, well, they'll leave you alone and scare you to death.
With each attack, the clouds of blood in the water, the screaming, the splashing, more sharks would come. On the 3rd day, after LD had been bumped by sharks repeatedly, one came in for an attack.
In that clear water, you could see those sharks circling, and then every now and then one would just like lightning would come straight up and take a sailor, take him down. Well, this one came up and took the sailor next to me and took him down. I never saw him or the life jacket or anything anymore. Just somebody screaming, yelling, or getting bit. I stayed in about half shock. I was scared, but there wasn't anything we could do about it. We couldn't get out of the water. We had nothing to fight off sharks with, and all you did was pray that it wouldn't be you whenever the sharks hit.
Did you have any tactics?
You know, I never have and still don't know a good way to ward off sharks, whether it is to scream and thrash and all. I think the best thing we did was try to stay as close together, kind of bunched up as we could. It's confusing, I think, to the shark maybe. But you get one or two out away from the group, and they're just real likely to be the ones that get hit or get taken under with a shark.
The sharks, though, were not the main killer. Under the scorching sun, almost all without any food or water for days, men were dying from exposure or dehydration. Many became exhausted and drowned. Terrorized by sharks, struggling to stay alive, some survivors started to become delirious.
The life preserver had blisters on my shoulders, and just blisters on top of blisters, and hot. It was so hot, we'd pray for dark. When it get dark, why, then we'd pray for daylight because it gets cold, our teeth would chatter. Lots of them hallucinated. In fact, there was a man in our group that one night quieted everybody, said, "Everybody be quiet, I'm on a walkie-talkie to a submarine below us." He says, "It's one of our own subs, and it's going to pick us up." Except, he said, "Are there any of you that urinate in the bed at night?" And one old boy said, "I do." And he said, "You can't come aboard. They don't allow men like that aboard submarines." And, of course, that's pathetic. They were out of their heads, hallucinating.
Desperate for fresh water, some believed that the Indianapolis had not in fact sunk, but was floating within reach just beneath the surface.
All of our water was on the second deck of the ship, our drinking water. Another buddy of mine was hallucinating. So he decides he'll go down to the second deck and drink water. All of a sudden, his life preserver's floating, but he's not there. And then he comes up saying how good and cool that water was and that we ought to get us a drink, and then he dies just shortly afterwards. Whenever you drink salt water, you have brown foam in your mouth and your nose, and your tongue swells, and you choke and you die.
After 4 days and nights in the water, by chance a U.S. Navy plane flew overhead.
We screamed and yelled and kicked, and it just kept going, didn't see us. Then in a little bit, seemed like a day and probably 20 minutes, we heard the motor again and looked, and there was one coming from the other direction a little closer. And we screamed and yelled and kicked, and it just kept going. Our spirits fell, and then just before sundown, we heard the motor again and looked back south, and about a half a mile from us was this big PBY, and it changed direction and flew right over us, and the guy in the hatch of the plane stood there waving at us. Now that's when the tears came, and your hair stood up, and you knew you were saved, you knew you were found at least, and that was the happiest time of my life.
Finally alerted to the disaster, U.S. naval ships raced to the site and began looking for the groups of sailors dotted around the ocean. All the while, LD simply waited, drifting in and out of consciousness. Less than 10 of his group were still alive.
It got dark, and a strong big light from heaven out of a cloud came down, and I thought it was angels coming. What it was, their rescue ship was shining its spotlight up into the sky to give all the sailors hope and let them know that there's somebody looking for them. And then sometime during the night, I remember a strong arm was pulling me up out of the water into the little bitty boat, just knowing that I was saved, and that's the best feeling you can have.
Of a crew of almost 1,200, just 317 survived. LD spent weeks in hospital, his skin pickled raw by the salt water. He still bears the scars from his ordeal. Looking for a scapegoat, the US Navy placed responsibility for the disaster on the captain, who was among the few who managed to survive. For years he received hate mail, and in 1968 he took his own life. The surviving crew, including LD, campaigned for decades to have their captain exonerated, which he was more than 50 years after the sinking. LD returned to his home in Comanche, Texas, where he lives today.
I dream every night. I have anxiety every day, and then especially at night, but I haven't learned how to keep it from doing it. I don't guess I ever will, but I'm living with it, sleeping with it, getting by.
Each year, he attends the reunion of the last surviving sailors of the USS Indianapolis.
No, thank you. Isn't that a story? What a hell of a
was. I mean, you
story.
could just feel the fear and the pain. We talked about how he still had anxiety and stuff. He had PTSD before people knew that such a thing existed. They called it other things, shell shock, or just the horrors of war, the existential horror. But to imagine being in that and seeing that,
No.
and then that just replays over and over and over in your head.
I mean, like I said, I've sat and held a hand and talked to and had a beer with and hugged and cried with so many. War's hell, people. These people that, rally for, let's do that. You haven't been in one, have you? You know what I mean? You haven't been in one or lost somebody and known.
I've been to
Kathleen
the
said it
Vietnam,
great. Go ahead.
How many levels of hell? I've been to that the war memorial there in D.C., and you would see guys come up and they'd find a name and just touch that name, and they
and
just
lose it.
collapse almost and just sit there and sob and cry. They were reliving that moment when that person in their platoon, their buddy, didn't exist anymore. And just
how horrible. And it doesn't end there. Everybody, thinks it does. Is it like not all scars are visible, and these men, like I say, we often say 1945, one of the greatest generations, I mean, where are you going to find, show me 100 16-year-olds, 17, 18, 19-year-olds that would do and could do what these men
couldn't get them off their PlayStation long enough.
And it should be remembered in that way. I remember one Christmas Eve, I was in my sister's living room, and one of the companies she had there, we were talking about, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been that latest one about the Messenger movie. Anyway, it was a couple years ago. And we were talking about going to see it. And, I just, it's hard to sit through these like Platoon and different ones, but you do. Longest Day, all of these. And it's you need to see it, and they need to be shown. And to tell you the truth, They should have it playing 24/7, one right after the other, in every room that Congress or senators or these people moving
that
these
vote to
pieces
send
should have
these
to
people
live
on
with it.
board. Yeah,
Yeah, they
indeed.
should sit one of these vets down to every single one of them before they make a decision.
And then Kathleen Taylor's got a question there.
Go ahead.
Did he opt out? She said she felt like she read that he did.
Right.
Could
I'm
be
gonna.
wrong.
What that gentleman that was just talking, no,
Yeah,
he didn't.
no,
But
that
this
he
one
was.
did, and I wanted to tell this a little bit too because I think this is another tragedy, and that was kind of what I was getting to. It's like it doesn't end there, you know.
Yeah, I'm avoiding that S word because YouTube doesn't like that, and it can cause you to
Right.
lose your monetization on a show. So he
It sure
opted out,
can.
or used
Yeah.
the self checked out, or however how you want to say. They have to
Smart,
dance
Steve.
around it for the
They
censors
took
here.
down one of my videos because a ghost opted out.
Mhm.
I was like, "Excuse me, what?"
I've had that
It's like,
happen
what?
before, where
Yeah.
somebody chose to go out on their own terms, and YouTube doesn't like you saying that word.
Mm-mm-mm. But you can say war over and over and over, and that's not a problem. So this gentleman here, he had spoke about him. You know, I showed the picture. You probably can't see it on my phone, but it's the captain. I had him there in the video, and I thought it was so very sad because the crew did not blame him, you know, at all. This was a terrible tragedy because they didn't have an escort. They were delivering not the bomb, but crucial parts for the bomb. And, you know, half of them didn't even know they were doing it. Nobody knew where they were. It was a big, secret. They didn't have any kind of escort whatsoever, and they usually would have had. That was the big part of it. They also were not given information that Japanese subs were in the area, and they should have been. There should have been something different here. If this isn't a lesson, I hope to God it's a lesson learned, for Pete's sakes. But here recently, the things I'm hearing, I don't think we've learned a damn thing. But 75 years ago, now this was in, might be a little longer now, but this gentleman, this was Captain Charles Butler McVeigh of the USS Indianapolis. Now, it's history, real facts. This man was blamed and also sent hate mail, death threats, letters, all kinds of things until he finally could not take it anymore. And like Steve said, he opted out and took himself
Kathleen,
out.
it
Imagine
doesn't
having to
matter
live
if
with that.
Kathleen, it doesn't matter if you say it in the chat. It's cool. We just can't say it to where the
Right.
AI catches it
Mhm.
because it will
Right.
demonetize the show. But no, it's
Correct.
okay to say it
Jack's
in the
right.
chat. It's in the
Mhm,
right
mhm.
context.
That's fine. That's fine. And again, you never know. They don't warn you ahead of time. They'll go back 3-4 years ago and pop a video or whatever, and for all kinds of things. But again,
Oh, I got one time stock footage of a toe tag on a body. Well, it wasn't a real body. It was this piece of
right?
stock footage, and YouTube didn't like that.
Isn't that crazy? But again,
You never know. And most of that it's done by AI, and only does a human watch it if you get demonetized on that particular video, and then you appeal it. Then somebody
Mhm.
actually has to sit and watch it.
Mhm.
So the AI gets it wrong sometimes.
You should appeal every single one of them just to make them sit and watch
Every
it.
single one.
Sit through one of my 3-hour videos and pick out the things I say that are wrong. That'll teach them.
One of those YouTube cube monkeys might learn something. But I have found,
Unbelievable.
this is other YouTubers, you might find this handy, that if you are appealing something, do it on the weekend. Because I think those people that are there on the weekend, there are probably just a few of them in the building, and they don't really seem to care. They'll just, okay, it's fine. But
Right,
then through the
right.
week, you get some of the nasty ones because probably the team leader or their supervisor, somebody's watching them closer. But on the weekends, if you have to appeal something on YouTube, appeal on the weekend.
God, I can't imagine what the team leaders at YouTube look like.
You imagine that's your job to sit there and watch videos and say, is that a good
No.
thing or a bad thing? Checklist.
Unbelievable. I just,
I've
there is no rhyme or
worked
reason
worse
to it.
jobs.
Yeah, and it is frightening, Glenn. It is. And Jack had a wonderful thing here. He said he's actually got what was it, Jack? You got, I'm not gonna make you write it again. I'll go in and find it. He had like the actual newspaper and a handwritten letter of one of the survivors and everything, and he described it a lot like this gentleman here did. But I'll tell you what, the one we remember is this one right here. Let's see if you like this, YouTube.
Japanese submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief. It's coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady, just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb. 1,100 men went into the water. Vessel went down in 12 minutes. Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer. You know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was our bomb mission had been so secret. No distress signal had been sent. They didn't even list us overdue for a week. Very first light, Chief. Sharks come cruising. So we formed ourselves into tight groups. It's kind of like old squares in a battle, like you see in a calendar, like the Battle of Waterloo. And the idea was, shark comes to the nearest man, that man he start pounding and hollering and screaming. Sometimes the shark would go away. Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. The thing about a shark is lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When he comes at you, doesn't seem to be living until he bites you, and those black eyes roll over white, and then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red, and in spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in, they rip you to pieces. By the end of that first dawn, lost 100 men. I don't know how many sharks, maybe 1,000. I don't know how many men. They average 6 an hour. On Thursday morning, Chief, I bumped into a friend of mine, Herbie Robinson from Cleveland. Baseball player, bosun's mate. I thought he was asleep. Reached over to wake him up. Bobbed up and down in the water. It was like a kind of top. Upended. Well, he'd been bitten in half below the waist. Noon the 5th day, Mr. Hooper, Lockheed Ventura. So he swung in low and he saw us. He was a young pilot, a lot younger than Mr. Hooper anyway. He saw us and he come in low, and 3 hours later, a big fat PBY comes down and started to pick us up. That was the time I was most frightened, waiting for my turn. I'll never put on a life jacket again. So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out. The Sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
Absolutely.
That's
incredible.
It's riveting. Now, Peter Benchley wrote the book. He and a guy named Carl Gottlieb wrote the script together. And I think either Benchley watched those interviews you did, because it's very similar to what's in the book, his speech there. But somebody knew something. Somebody interviewed somebody, or somebody had been there. Something the dialogue
Incredible.
is just so perfect, and that's one of the things that was riveting about all the story arcs and the different subplots and things that were going on. It was brilliantly woven together there with Spielberg at the helm.
Absolutely. And
It's
the
classic.
thing about
It's
it too,
classic.
yeah. Oh, such classic. And I think I'm going to watch it tonight. I can't get enough. It's
And
terrible.
the
It scares
original
the shit out of me.
Original
But I watch it.
title was A Stillness in the Water.
Oh, is it really? Didn't know that. But this here, that was so profound. And Richard Dreyfuss said the look on his face, he said, I wasn't acting. He said the way we, rehearsed it and he was going to do his, have his monologue there. He said the way when it clicked in and roll and he started, he said, became that guy. He was such in awe of the story. It was like he had heard it for the first time. And the look on his face in the background there, he said, that was real. He said, that wasn't acting. I was just listening to it and imagining what it would have been like. Horror, absolute pure horror. I cannot imagine. And God forbid anybody ever has to go through anything like that again. And God bless those men. And the other thing about it is one of the only things in the movie, and I'm going to watch it again so I can tell you again definitively next week.
Yeah, I've got to go watch it again now.
Yeah,
too.
but yeah, I do. And again, it's near the anniversary. So when you watch it, think of those guys. Think of everybody else that's ever, when somebody takes an oath and puts on a uniform, we don't know what we're going to get into, and some of us get lucky and some, isn't. But
so
it's horrible. And
it's 48 years old, or is it on?
What the
film?
Oh, the film, it was 1975. So that's, golly,
I can't math in my head.
Somebody do the math. Get a calculator. But that is incredible. But it is one of the only things in the movie. 48
this year.
Yeah. And gosh, seems long ago. I was sitting in a theater watching that. But that part is separate from the 1916 shark attacks. So many of the 1916 shark attacks is really interwoven in this book and movie. It's absolutely incredible.
Brilliant the way they pull from several stories, Indianapolis, the 1916 attacks, and then other people's personal experiences, and just it's one of the most beautifully written and then made.
Yeah.
And there's so many little bits of trivia, like the iconic, those yellow barrels. And it's funny how that came about. It's such a memorable thing in the film. And it was actually by accident because, like you said, they had trouble with the shark. The shark, the electronic mechanical shark, wouldn't work about half the time. So they used those barrels to indicate the shark's presence when the shark wasn't working. But then it put that extra element of fear in there that they weren't even thinking about. So sometimes, there are no coincidences.
It's neat.
Happy accidents.
Happy accidents. And it is very much like you and I talk about a lot, Steve, too. It's like that Stephen King feel, and so many other authors have it too. It's what your imagination is so much stronger than them just showing something. And that we've talked about that going back to old films and the way it builds and the suspense.
King talked about that. He would describe the shape under the sheet, but he would never lift the sheet back and show it to you, because whatever you conjured up in your head was what scares you. And you can scare yourself better than he could scare you. That's just so brilliant.
Yeah. And it, like you said in Jaws, that was the big thing, because that's what brought the music.
You knew it was there.
And Spielberg had to go to the composer, was doing the music. He said, we have to have some music that builds. And that's where that came from.
That saw it as a kid, or maybe even saw it on TV when it played on TV for the first time. That it'll put chills on you.
And now you can do it. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, I've been doing that since I was a kid. I mean, just that right there to scare me. But I can remember coming back from that, and I was living with my aunt. It was after my mom died. I was living with my aunt and uncle, and they had one of those above ground pools. And I was in a band. And I
look at the sharks.
I was. I used to come back. I tell you what, I used to come back from band practice and or playing out, and it's late, and I had to, come in on the weekend anyway. And sometimes I'd just, go jump in the pool. It'd be nice because nobody'd be out there, right? Wasn't even thinking about it until my brother found out that he was really my cousin, but I called him my brother. He found out that the shark scared him to death. He says, I'm going to go to the aquarium just to bug me, and I'm going to get a baby shark or a shark and put him in that pool. Never went in that damn pool again, day or night. That was it.
Great.
So everybody's something.
There were so many parodies. Mad Magazine parodied it. Saturday Night Live had the land shark. Do you remember that, where there'd be a knock on the door? And it's the original, not ready for primetime players. Knock at the door. Candygram. Candygram, and
Candygram.
then opens
Oh,
the door and then kill her at it, and the shark eats her,
yep.
And
I remember that was funny.
it was
Candygram.
such a part of the popular culture at the time.
It's so true.
It was everywhere.
So true. And so many great quotes. I mean,
We're
Ted
gonna need
put
a
it up
bigger
here
boat.
first.
I think
Gonna need
everybody
a
was
big
that
quote.
way.
Absolutely. I mean, so many
I've
great
said that
quotes
so many times.
and so many things. So we might as well just give her a quick look here. Let's see if I can play it. Scarlet Billows. Sounds like a stripper.
And I read somewhere how many miles through the ocean a shark can smell fresh blood. It's like that's a shark. It was such a good line.
There it is. Can you imagine him having the guts after that to be back on the water? It's almost like a defiance in his case going through the Indianapolis.
And it even draws from Moby Dick.
Yeah. Similar. Yeah.
If you've read Moby Dick, the Captain Ahab became
There's that
obsessed with
music.
that shark and killing that shark.
They're going to kill this video. You better watch it now because this is going down.
What you do, you play 28 seconds and stop. And the 28 seconds and stop. If you get 30 seconds, it's still under fair use at that point.
25. 3 tons on them.
I got to watch this movie. There he goes.
You're going to need a bigger boat, right?
I'm going to put it on my media server tonight.
How do we handle this?
And you remember then there was all these pop-up
Everybody-
movies afterwards.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Everybody forgets that he says it twice. Everybody forgets he says it twice. You're going to need a bigger boat, right? We're not going to stay on this boat and fight that shark. Brody's character was fantastic. When he dumped that wine, if you don't know the story, Hooper comes from a millionaire family, and he chose not to live that life. He wanted to be a marine biologist, and of course he went to college and everything else, but he kind of turned away from all the money and was doing what you see him doing. And he was the shark expert that they called in, and he's just going right to it, getting going. And Brody's like, wait a minute, what? So, Hooper's character does still have certain tastes. He knows what's good. And he brings a couple of bottles of wine to this dinner because he's going to discuss this with Brody's, family, Chief Brody, who's trying to get the beaches to close. And they won't do it because it's 4th of July and they'll lose too much money. That comes from the book 12 Days of Terror. That actually happened in 1916 in Mattawan. They didn't want to do it. So, and in Spring Lake. So that's also portrayed in the movie. But when he brings in this expensive wine, Brody's listening to this about the sharks and what they can do. And, he's just spouting off all this scientific details and all this stuff. Brody's losing it. Opens the bottle of wine and just moves the wine glass out of the way and dumps it in a drinking glass. And Hooper's going, you're going to want to let that breathe. Oh, never mind. It's too late. He's just going to drink like half the bottle out of the wine glass because it's so devastating. He can't get the beaches closed, and one thing after the other happens. And in the movie also, you have his sons. He has 2 little boys, I think, in the movie. And he allows them to play with their new canoe or kayak, or I think it's a canoe, in the bay because there isn't going to be any sharks there. Well, very much like the Mattawan Creek, here comes the shark. So again, that was part of the 1916. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
I can do what I want. I'm the chief of police. Yeah.
The sequels were good too. I remember Jaws 3 and 3D and all that. That was
a
big deal.
The second one wasn't too bad, but after that it got crazy.
Yeah.
Sharknado was absolutely nuts. It was crazy, right?
And then that came out in 75. In 77, there was a movie called Orca, Killer Whale. Do you remember that one?
I do.
Richard Harris.
That wasn't so bad.
Charlotte
Richard
Rampling.
Harris.
And that's been described as Jaws meets Moby Dick. And that one had accidentally killed a pregnant mate of this orca killer whale, and the thing is hell bent on vengeance. And that's
I do
even
remember
though it
that
was kind
movie.
of a knockoff. it took it, killer shark, killer whale took it a different direction, but that's almost as good a movie. I wouldn't put it on the same level as Jaws, but it's worth watching. Orca the Killer Whales. Richard Harris gives an awesome performance. Charlotte Rampling,
He
Bo
does.
Derek was in that. Bo Derek was in that.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Yeah.
Little
Wow.
water movies.
I
Remember
forgot all
those?
about that one.
Also, The Deep with Jacqueline Bisset, where the people were diving down
Yeah.
trying to get those ampules that had the drugs in them, and there was like the bad guy was after him, and there's one scene there, and the spoiler alert here, where they backed him into a place where they knew there was a moray eel hiding in there, and it goes out and attacks the guy, and just that was a good movie.
Oh, wow. What movie was it? Was it The Deep? I can't remember, because if my sons are around, I can say stuff like that, and they'll tell me. I'll name actors. I think it was LL Cool J, was it not? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because I am the baddest mofo. Do you remember that? Was that The Deep? Was that the one where Samuel L. Jackson standing on the edge of the pool? They were doing something with sharks. They were messing around with nature.
And it came out and just like
and it came out and just got him. Yeah.
What movie
remember
was
that?
it?
That was,
Yeah.
I think it was The Deep, wasn't it? Or Deep Blue? Maybe it was Deep Blue.
Yeah,
I don't
the
know.
Deep
There's so
was
many.
like. Let me take a look here.
Which
real
one was
quick.
that? Deep Blue?
The-
I think it might have been.
The Deep was 1977 also.
Okay.
And,
Maybe it's
then
Deep Blue.
Let's see when Deep Blue is.
Because there's a bunch of microbiologists messing with sharks for Alzheimer's, I believe. They were trying to come up with a cure for Alzheimer's. Yeah, I think so. But that was, LL was cool. I liked him. Yep. Samuel L. Jackson, LL Cool J. Yep.
Yeah. Deep
Got the
Blue
parrot.
Sea. Deep Blue Sea, 1999.
You
But I
ain't
remember
never
that part where he's just there. He's standing there and just
stabs him with the cross.
And the shark and he's gone. And that's he's not in the movie anymore. But that was great.
He has some of the best lines in that movie. I remember when he was talking about the theory of relativity, and he was explaining to a friend. He said, well, time is relative, because you can put your hand on a hot stove and a second will feel like an hour. You put your hand on a hot woman and an hour feels like a second.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
LL had some cool lines in that. That's probably why he did that.
Yeah.
I liked him in Toys too. That movie made me absolutely bonkers.
Was that the one where he was trapped in the bottom of the ship with the parrot on him? And
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And Toys
I've
had done
seen
that
so many
with
of those,
Robin
I kind
Williams.
of get them all mixed up.
Yeah, but he was always camouflaged. He could be sitting in a chair and you wouldn't see LL and all that stuff. I don't know what he's doing now, but I think the LL said ladies love.
Cool.
Yeah,
he told a couple of different stories. Ladies love Cool J, Legend in Leather. He had it.
He just makes it up when he goes along. But that he had some good ones in that. I don't think he's done much since, but that was a decent one.
Who he was and where he came from, stuff. He was a damn fine actor when they had him.
Yeah,
let him go free like that. The
character and mastered the art of camouflage, because he'd stand in front of some wallpaper. He had all these different different outfits. That was the funny part.
Yeah, he'd just stand in front of the wallpaper. Where'd you come from?
Yeah, that was funny. That was the best part of that movie. The rest of it made me a little crazy. It was really nuts. But there you go. Yeah, that was a good one. But I found it fascinating. I had to show those couple of clips because, again, all the famous lines.
But the thing that in the chat, who's going to go watch Jaws again? Now I am, and I want that director's cut. I'll watch it through one time, and then I'm going to watch it through with just the commentary a second time.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch Marty? Did you get to watch Marty?
I didn't get to watch it yet, but
well, you got it in your future, because that's so good. You forget how good that is. Yeah. But I think it's very interesting. Guys, how interested I am in the psychological development of character and stuff like that. And I just found each one of these characters on that boat, and the shark, everything was just the shark perfect.
Just as much a character as the people.
And so was the orca, the boat, and everything had its thing. But it's also the stuff going around, the greed, money, power, all of that, and how they would allow people to go in the water knowing this thing was out there. I've told you this before. I'm right here on the Jersey coast. And, after Jaws, everybody started looking into everything. We found out one of the great white breeding grounds. Of course, they're everywhere around, Hawaii and, California and whatnot. But if you track these sharks and you pull up a tracking shark map right now and look at the East Coast, they're just as much here. But they all come up and go over out to Long Island, right? And what's the name of the town that this happens in Jaws? It's Amity. Not
Yeah.
Amityville, but Amity.
Amity.
So how many horrors are you going to have in Amityville? You know what I mean? So it's
And,
a
I
trip.
remember when the movie came out and sharks were on everybody's mind. They talked about there was some place where shark had come in like it was a river or something that opened into and flowed into the ocean.
Yes.
The shark would swim upstream and be in fresh water, and people got bit while wading in a river. So it was a small shark, like I don't know, a nurse shark or something like that. But there were people that were attacked in fresh water. So
Yes.
frightening
Absolutely.
prospect.
Absolutely.
And even I got in the act. My nephew and I, we made a recording on a reel-to-reel cassette tape thing called "The Shark in the Toilet," and we had this whole adventure, and then it involved us flushing it down
Now,
the toilet.
Steve, I had not thought about that, and now
There you
I'm
go.
telling you what. If I have a problem, I'm calling you, and I'm going to tell you, Steve.
It'd just be a little baby shark, a little. That's a whole other
I already
thing.
got to think of spiders under the rim and snakes coming up in Alabama. They tell you
Now,
snake come up through you.
little tiny shark going to swim up your sewer pipe and bite you right in the butt when you're doing your business.
Oh my God! I can't take a shower. Can't take a bath.
Can't take a dump.
So much-
Just
bum, bum,
do it
bum,
off
bum,
the
bum,
same
bum.
thing. Take a dump in the shower and keep your eyes open and your pistol ready.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, Steve! I mean, I just really can't stand. I've been out. I would go out on the boat with my brother. Recently he's had to give it up, and he's got moved on to
Hey,
Delaware. He's
there we go.
retired, but
Now we'll see
God,
if
it scares
anything
me.
happens before next week because we've
Mhm.
talked about it here. Kathleen says just on the news tonight, Cape Cod first sighting of a great white this year,
There you
and
go.
already several bites on the East Coast. And then
Mhm.
Vixen Doe was talking about the 3 boys were killed by shark in fresh water.
Absolutely, and we're going to get into more of
It does
that next
happen.
week.
It
Yep.
does happen. Fresh water, that don't mean
Do
you're
you, Bernice? You have a shark sticker on your toilet lid? That's so funny. That's so funny. That would be cool to have. Well,
just put a warning sign on there, no sharks allowed.
no sharks allowed.
In
Yeah.
there, that'll keep them out. I know
In
people that
salt water. I never knew
like-
that. I didn't either. I think things are changing too. I think things are adapting. Again, Dr. Fernicola here, he was talking about how they tried so hard to research. They kept putting out that it was a bull shark, and the bull shark, they had caught a bull shark, I think. But at the time, you have to understand, and we'll get more into that next week, they didn't really know what they were talking about back then.
Yeah.
You have to understand, some people thought sharks had
bull
legs.
shark, bull.
Yeah, they thought
That's a bull shark.
yeah, when they caught the first shark that wasn't it, and again portrayed in Jaws, you saw the scene here in that little clip
Yeah.
I did, that they hung it up. Hey, we caught the shark. We caught the shark. That famous scene where Hooper's on the deck and all the boats are clamoring together, and some people have dynamite, some have their wife's Sunday roast on a big old hook and all this stuff. They catch a shark and they hang it up, and everybody's congratulating them. And Hooper walks by and goes, "That's not the shark." And he goes, "What?" But that happened in real life too.
Yeah.
But they miss.
And I've heard of that where they catch a shark and open it up and they find part of somebody in there or some things that it's swallowed. It does happen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Frightening stuff.
Absolutely. But he really believes it was a juvenile white shark, and he explains it very well. And the way he was explaining it was so neat because it sounded to me very similar to in Australia, going on a walkabout. When you're a teen, you get sent out, you have to go out and you have to come back with meat or food or whatever. Or in many cultures across in Africa, Native American cultures, so many different ones, you have to go out, prove yourself. You come back, you've got food, or you found water, or you survived, whatever it may be. They still do that in a lot of military training, and they get that from tribal stuff. But you would think, why wouldn't a predator, something like a shark, especially one like a great white, do that? And that he says that's what the juvenile great whites do. They separate from everything. First of all, you have to survive. The first one born eats all his brothers and sisters as they come out right away. So only the firstborn really survives.
Shark gotta eat.
Lucky enough to get away as a baby.
And if you've ever watched those videos of the way those gills undulate, it's amazing the way they're.
It is
put
amazing.
together. They are, like you said, a killing machine.
It is. They are a
Killing
eating machine.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's it. and they separate out, get away, and that's why they go to more shallower waters, because the larger sharks can't go as close to practice getting larger prey, and they're going after stuff like seal, different things, seals and larger fish and things. But that they said that a lot of them, if they bite you, they don't really like human as much, and that's why they bite you and leave you alone. But I'll tell you
Like
something,
he
some
tastes
of them
funny.
some of them do, because the stories I'm going to tell you next week are, stories of people, actually 3 people having a tug of war with a person in the water, trying to pull them away from the shark, not knowing how to deal with it.
And I don't know
And
if this is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
awful. No, go ahead, honey. Go ahead.
I read of an account. I think this guy was a surfer or a swimmer or something, and he had encountered a shark, and it was trying to get him, and he took his fist and punched it in the snout or whatever, nose, whatever you want to call it, and it hurt it enough that it went away and left him alone. And I heard of somebody else that was being menaced with one, and they took a boat oar and kept smacking it in the nose.
Yeah.
Same thing with a bear. If a bear's after you and you've got nothing left to lose, punch it in the nose. They can't stand that. The bear's nose is very sensitive. I've heard of people getting away.
And rocks. Certain bears click rocks too. Again, are you going to be able to think of this as something's coming at you like that? I mean, oh my God, I can't imagine being in this position. It's awful. So,
Kathleen, that's on my bucket list. I want to do one of those cage dives one day. Now, I've been to Australia. I've been to the South China Sea and some of those places in Southeast Asia.
You couldn't pay me $1 million to do that.
It'd be thrilling.
I'm serious.
I mean, but you always think, what if that one time it breaks the door? What if one time
you couldn't pay somebody $1 million to come to me and say, Cisco, we're going to put you in a cage and put you in the water with the sharks, because
you're shark bait. You're shark bait.
You're going in the cage. It take a lot of them to get me in there.
It's on my bucket list. I got to do it one time.
Maybe I was, made to walk the plank by the pirates or something like that, And again, I can remember as a kid watching movies like Blackbeard and, all these other ones where they were making people walk the plank to go into the water, and there's the sharks all come. Horrible things, right?
Oh, yeah,
I'm with you, Aunt Edna.
They would follow those ships when they made somebody walk the plank. The sharks would be out there circling, like buzzards circling.
Yeah,
it's about to perish out in the desert or wherever. Sharks.
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
It's feeding time. Now I haven't heard of a bed shark yet, but you never know.
Just shut up, Steve. If I can't sleep, I'm calling you.
I'll be up anyway. So.
I know you'll be up anyway. I got nightmares. I mean, that's all I need is a cat to go under the covers with his tail poked up, looking like a fin. A poor cat.
Do you remember when they sold the fins, like kids could put on their backs and swim with them?
Stupidest thing ever.
They cautioned you to use that in swimming pools only, but I've seen people with them at the beach.
You know what? To get shot.
A friend of mine said that was the perfect mother-in-law swimsuit. Give her a shark fin.
Yeah, there you go. And then just go to the dock and yell that they're the next shark, and boy, that'll take care of its own, because that's one of the best. That's one of my favorite
too on the West Coast. Be out in the water and see a fin, and it turns out it's a dolphin or a porpoise or whatever. I can't remember which is where. But you see that fin, you're just, oh, hell no. Let me out of this water. Don't know what it is.
Absolutely, dude.
And sometimes dolphins, I mean, they're usually friendly, but sometimes they've attacked people. They tend to be more amorous, and I've heard of people who go swim with the dolphins.
They never did that, Glenn?
That they can, dolphins will try to get physical with a human. There's an attraction there. And I've heard of people in Florida, when I was down there, a lady went swimming with the dolphins, and the dolphin goes, "Hey, baby," wasn't going to take no for an answer, and they had to fish her out of the water.
Oh wow! See, there we go. Soldier in Vietnam punched a tiger in the nose and had him by the arm. I could see that. You can move a little more, I think, when you're on the land. But I used to. I don't have them so much anymore. I probably will tonight. But I used to have dreams where I was fighting somebody underwater, and I'd go to punch him, and I couldn't because it was real slow.
It's real slow, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or you're trying to run in the water, and
oh God! So you're in there, and the shark's got you. You're hitting the shark,
but I was running like I was in the water, like it's just running through mud or something.
I'll tell you what, we've done a lot of shows. I've got almost 400 videos on this channel, and Steve got God knows how many you have, sweetie. And I'll tell you what, this has been the most horrific show I've ever done in my life.
Cisco is traumatized.
I'm so traumatized.
She's
I
gonna
swear to
need to
God.
medicate now.
I think I'm going to have to go and watch Jaws just to get out of my system. Maybe I'll go to the beach and go, and I wouldn't even
Take your
nanny boo
laptop
boo.
in the bathroom, turn out the lights,
Stop it.
draw you a hot
No.
bath, sit in
No.
the tub and watch Jaws with it sitting up on the counter.
News at 11. Redhead goes nuts in New Jersey, shoots everything that moves. Film at 11. No, God, no.
Naked redhead running down the street shrieking about sharks.
Sharks. Where's LL Cool J when you need him? Oh my God. But that would, as crazy as that sound, it would get lost in the mire of all the other crazy out there today. So, nobody'd even pay attention to it.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you, that was a scary damn thing in Sandy, seeing those dang sharks coming down the road in Seaside, swimming down the road in Seaside, past the road signs and
that is
everything.
funny how you could do that, and people
coming
wouldn't
for
pay
me.
that much of attention. You'd probably end up a viral video. It was like when I was in Thailand, I was sitting at a little outdoor cafe having my coffee one morning, and this elephant just goes lumbering down the street. And a few minutes later, this guy comes running along, and he said,
See my elephant?
Did you see an elephant? And I said, was it an Indian elephant or an African elephant? And he just looked at me, and I said, he went that way. He's like, what difference does it make? Well, I need to know.
That's funny.
That's the right elephant, but then one went right down the road there.
Oh my
They
God.
use them there as beasts of burden for moving trees and stuff down logs. And yeah, his just wandered off, and it trotting along. He says, I'm out of here. I'm going to check out.
I got water right behind me. I'm telling you what, if there's something in the water, if all these trains dumping stuff in the water or something else, and some kind of radioactive thing happens, and sharks start sprouting legs and can breathe outside water and start crawling out of the creek and coming toward my house.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what,
climb a tree. But if it's got legs and arms, it could probably climb a tree after you.
Yep. Look. This is true. Look. Axe murderers, ghosts, elementals, aliens, Bigfoot, demons, Mothman, cattle mutilations, fine. Yeah. But a shark, yeah. If you think that's bad, come at me with a cricket, and things will die. I mean,
the ones I hate are the camel crickets. They don't even. There's some kind of cricket. They're brown and they got that humpback, and they will jump at you. They're not smart enough to jump away. You walk into a room, they startle and they jump at you.
I almost shot a hole in my floor with a double-barreled shotgun because the cricket got under the laundry and I could hear it, didn't know where it was. I'm screaming. This actually happened. You can ask. It sounds like that song. You can call home and ask my wife. It's you call and ask my son. I'm screaming bloody murder, standing on the bed, going, get him. Here comes three, teenage boys in various kinds of boxer shorts and, whatever they were wearing. They all come in with weapons. What's going on? I said, oh my God, there's a cricket. I saw it. Now I don't see it. I hear it. It's here. You've got to kill it. I swear to God, I'm going to start shooting the floor up. And they got me out, covered me, made me safe, got me out. And it just took care of the cricket. That was almost as funny as the time. Oh gosh, Steve, I ever tell you this one?
I like Jack Kilowatts.
What'd he say?
Let's go shooting crickets inside with a shotgun. You can't make this stuff up.
You think I'm kidding?
I almost burned the house down one time trying to dispatch a black widow with a can of hairspray and a lighter. Oh, I didn't care. I would have burned the house down to get that spider.
I almost got it drunk with 100 proof vodka and a lighter once, and he believed. I said, "Look at my face and see if I'm kidding." And he backed off. Good for him, because he'd have been dancing around there on fire, and I'd have roasted marshmallows. He was absolutely out of his mind.
I'm surprised at the people that are scared of crickets. The little black ones. I played with them. I kept them. I had a little Oriental cricket box.
I don't like the khaki beige ones that spit tobacco, because they jumped all over me when I was a kid, and it traumatized me. I was like 2, and I was wearing an Easter dress. It was full of crinoline, and I went in the tall grass. And before you know it, I was crawling with them. And that's it. So crickets, sharks, and canned green beans. Don't even come at me with that stuff. I mean, because anything else, I'm all right, But
But a
you
shark
know,
with a
ugh.
box of bait crickets and a can of green beans for you. There you go. They're of
I
course not
sat
bad.
on a bench once trying to make my peace with them. They were behind the glass and they were looking at me and they knew it. And I knew they knew it because they had that look in his eye. And I'm like, screw this. I'm out of here. I mean,
When I
I
used to work a
respect
public
them.
job, I was at work one time and I saw just a regular little house cricket, and I picked it up and I had it in my hand and I was walking him out the door, and one of my coworkers, girl, said, "What do you got there?" And I showed her. I said, "Look," and she screamed. I mean, like you thought I had a rattlesnake in my hand. And one of the bosses came and said, "What's going on here?" She's like, "This freak has got a bug in his hand," but it was just a little cricket.
It was just a little
I'm just
I
putting him
came home.
outside. Okay.
I can't remember whether it was spring. It's just weird things happen. Like certain time of year you go in a room and there'd be ladybugs. I used to have that back at the in Alabama.
Oh, I
Some
got a
other
story.
things. But here it was in the garage and I don't know what happened, but I came home from work and my son is in the garage and he's got a leaf blower. And he's blowing it. And I'm, what is he doing? And I get out of the car and I come down the driveway and he stops and he puts his hands up. He says, "You don't want to come in here." He says, "This place is filled with armored crickets." And I said, "I'll get back in the car." It's just put the windshield wipers on and just prayed to God he got rid of them all.
I got to tell
Oh
you
my
about
God.
ladybug
Now they're
story.
blowing everywhere. Oh
Place
God.
where I grew
No.
up as a kid, we lived out in the country. We had 26 and a half acres, and only about 5 of that was cleared off. And my parents had a big garden spot
Gatling gun.
down on the other side of the creek, what they call the bottoms down there. And it was a good place to grow vegetables and corn and stuff. Well, one year, I think it was tomato plants, something got aphids. And so my dad is like one of these,
Cricket
like who's the place, the place where you order seeds and stuff from? Henry Fields, is that the name of it?
Maybe co-op, something like
It's
that.
some place like that. Well, they sold ladybugs. They were supposed to get rid of your
Those are
aphids.
nice.
And my dad ordered this crazy amount, like 25,000 ladybugs.
Holy
And they
shit.
came in a brick. And it said on there, "These are dormant. Put them in a warm spot and let them come to life, and then cut the package open, and then they'll take care of your aphids." And this was back in the early 70s, and I don't know what he paid for them, probably a lot. Had this huge brick of ladybugs. He put them on the sidewalk in front of the house, let them warm up, and you could see them wiggling around in there, carried it down to where the plants were, takes his pocket knife, cuts it open, and this cloud, I mean a black swarm of ladybugs came out of there and just took off and kept going. We never did see a single one in the garden. And my dad
They're
said,
homing ladybugs.
Yeah, that's what my dad
said. Those things.
There were homing ladybugs. That son of a bitch just sold that same pack of ladybugs a dozen times. We never saw one in the garden. Every single one of them, they came out in a swarm. The sky was black with them, and they just went off over the lake and went out of sight, and we never saw a single one. And he did. He said, "That old man Henry Field, that son of a bitch, sold me homing ladybugs." He sold that same bunch a dozen times.
What a gig, man!
What a gig! I was a little kid. I was
God, that's funny.
Wow, 25,000 of anything, that's a big deal. Ladybugs, oh hell yeah. They just and never
grade
saw
A
no
ladybugs.
one. And I think the aphids killed our tomato plants.
He got more aphids. Oh man, that's funny. Oh, what a gig though. You get it.
That's a true story. True story.
Well, you heard it here, folks. I'm telling you what. So, respect sharks, I guess, right? But man, what a story. I mean, it's been fun.
Look at my dad's face. As he stood there and watched.
Son of a bitch.
$50 worth of ladybugs.
They'll go right back.
And of course, Henry Field or whoever it was, that was a real person at one time, but it was a company at that time. That's some bitch Henry Field.
Oh God. They do that all the time at weddings. They'll say, like, "I want to release the doves," and they go back, they get collected. I thought the butterflies was the meanest damn thing I ever seen, because I think they freeze them and then they thaw and then you open them up and they all go, and I'm like, "Isn't it lovely?" And I'm like, "Yeah, not for the butterfly, you jerk."
I think for our wedding we'll release bats.
There you go. There you go.
Release a dozen bats inside the church, and people be like, it'll be memorable.
Do it.
Because we
Do
are going
it.
to have a night wedding, and
Oh
we're going to
God,
wear
I think
black.
you should do it. Oh, you
So
should just
look
do
at
it.
bats. Does anybody know where I can get some bats?
There you go. I bet you can. I bet you can. Probably you got them
The
damn lady.
only wedding you've ever been to,
Oh,
where you'll have to take a
God.
rabies shot afterwards.
Can you imagine? Yes, like imagine his face. You got to see his face. Like,
Yeah, it was just that look. He was just so crestfallen, so sad. Because like I said, it wasn't a lot of money, but 1973, $50 or whatever it was.
oh my God.
I mean,
It'll
it
be
was this
500
brick,
now.
this solid brick of bugs, and they were asleep or dormant or whatever. Put
Good
them on the
Lord.
sidewalk. They were wiggling. Are they ready, Daddy? Are they ready, Daddy? I was stoked. And then
Yeah.
it was a black,
Well,
just a black. It looked like a comma, a black teardrop
right.
just taken off in the
Just take
sky.
off.
They went out over the trees and toward the lake, and we never saw the first
Oh,
damn
fucking go.
ladybug, and not a one. That old man Henry Field, son of a bitch.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Oh, that's
ladybugs.
the best
He-
damn
He
story
stole
ever.
the same gang of ladybugs a dozen times.
Oh, God. See, just when you thought you've heard every story Steve ever had, this is why we do this. We
That was
we
cracking
remember
me.
shit.
I'd
Oh my
forgotten about
God,
that
that's
one.
so
But just
funny.
to look on my poor dad's face, he just like watched it fly away. Every single one of them. We did not see a one in the garden. And I was thinking, well, they'll fly, they'll circle around and come back.
Come
They
back
know what
for
they're
it.
supposed to
No,
do. But no, ladybugs
they wouldn't
did
have it.
not
No
give
bit of
a,
y'all.
they didn't give a shit. We're out of here, boys.
That's so funny.
They froze us,
Oh my
shipped us off,
gosh.
and let us go, but we're gone. We're out. Sorry about your aphids, but we're out of here.
We're out of here, man. That's funny. And I'm sitting here wondering how many other things are sold like that. I mean, there's a lot of things. And I do believe when you said bats, I think you can get bats. Because I think, you
I'm
can
seriously
get
gonna
those
check
to get the
into it.
mosquitoes. Yeah,
And
like
somebody in here
Indonesia.
said they have. Renee says she's got
Yeah.
4 bats. Now, I don't know if she keeps them as pets. A friend of mine caught one time and had it in a bird cage, but he was terrified of it because he was afraid he'd catch rabies. But it's
Oh, yeah.
the weirdest thing to me when they fly. I love it. But have you ever seen one walk? They've got this all like,
Yeah,
and
funny.
it doesn't look like anything
Some of
that
those
should
little
be
bitty
walking.
ones, like they're little, like about the size of your finger. They're just teeny tiny. Some of them are so cute, but they're great, for the bugs. I can remember walking through
And-
Belmar in the
Yeah.
street lights, and they'd be all around the street lights
Yeah,
getting all the bugs,
they
So
they
you
dive
put up a
at you
bat
every now
house.
and then. But
Yeah.
they're after the bugs. But we'd throw stuff up in the bats to try to. There was a game that my mom said she played it when she was a kid. It was called Bat, Fly Into My Hat. And you'd get your dad or somebody's hat, back when men wore hats, and you'd throw it up. And if you were lucky, you'd get a bat in the hat and then it'd fall down. And then you got to go let the bat loose.
The bat in the hat. Is that where they
Yeah,
got the cat in the hat from?
Bat, fly into my hat. And one time they caught a bat in my grandfather's hat, and they were afraid to
Yep.
lift the hat up. And he came
Bat
out and,
box.
what's my hat doing out here in the yard? Picked it up, and there's a bat flies out.
There's a bat flies out. Oh my gosh, your poor
But
father.
still
Farts in a
can't-
jar, ladybugs in a brick, and
Yeah, I'm
bats
telling
in
you.
their hat. I don't know how.
That
How
was
did
my
our
mom's
parents ever
father.
live through us?
That was my mom's father that had the
Was your
bat in
mama's
his
father?
hat. But
Man, how
but
did
the
our
other
parents
stuff,
ever
that was
live
my
through
dad.
it?
The fart in the jar, that's classic. I'll tell that story again some night.
That's funny. I can remember now that you said that it was my grandpappy that picked me up, and when I was covered in all those crickets and crinoline, and everybody was trying to pick them off, and my grandmother was just in the background just screaming
Yeah.
like a Alfred Hitchcock. So which caused me to scream, and I'm pretty sure the crickets were screaming too because they weren't doing none better. But
They're like,
when I was in the first night, no, it was the second tactical bivouac I was ever on. And boy, why does it have to rain? I mean, you're Fort Dix and pouring rain. Everybody was sick. We all had a fever. And I think I pulled the first 2 sections of the first 2 times on the guard duty so my buddy could sleep, and then she pulled 2 so I could sleep, and it's raining, and we dug the ditch around, the trench and all that stuff around the tent. We did all that, but it was just pouring rain. And I'm laying in there sleeping, fever like crazy. We know we got a huge day tomorrow. We're going to the range. We're going on a 30-mile march. We're doing all this stuff, just barely, they're kicking our ass. And I'm asleep. Well, this is what happened. She's on guard duty, and I'm laying in the 2-man tent by myself. And we had put all our sleeping bags together, so we could be nice and warm because it was nasty out. And it turned out when I woke up about 3 hours later, I was the only high spot in all this water. And guess what was all over me?
Leeches. Oh,
Crickets.
Now,
They were all coming out of the grass. And it was
leech,
crickets
I don't
all
want
in
a
the
leech
tent.
on me. I've seen water where that had leeches in them. And a friend of mine with me was, oh, it's okay. Came
Never
out and he had
got one of
leeches
those.
all over him.
Yeah.
I've never had one. I don't want one. Those are nasty little things. And
Nasty.
they latched on. And when he
Two
was
teeth.
pulling them off, blood was dripping down his leg.
Mm-hmm. You got to
I've got
pull them
another
up and
bat
out.
story. I had an old 71 Impala, big V8 engine.
I wish I had that.
That's the one I outran the highway patrol in one night. That's another story. But I was tearing ass down the road one time, came over a little rise, and just as I came down, I didn't know what it was. Just boom, something hit the window. And then when I got to where I could see, there was it was smudged, but almost a perfect outline of a bat. When I'd hit the bat, I guess it had enough oil or whatever on it, or something that it left a bat impression on my windshield, and I called it the Batmobile there till the rain washed that off. And another friend of mine was riding this Harley, had just a regular open face bell helmet. He got hit in the face with a bat, and it cut him, scratched him or something. He had to go take rabies shots. And I don't know about now, but back then it was a series of shots like in your abdomen, kind of around your navel.
Still is.
And I think it was like 6 or 8 or something. And he said the needle was about that damn long that they used for it. So
don't you think they could come up with something different at this point?
Yeah,
but I
really,
think
like
it's still the same thing.
or something.
I remember hearing a story about 2 little boys out with the bat. So kids, if you're listening, I hope at this point your parents have pulled you away from the screen for Pete's sake. But these 2 little boys out there messing around with the bat, and one of them, the littlest one, picked it up and it bit him. And they were scared to say anything because they didn't want to get in trouble, and they knew they shouldn't. And about 3, 4, 5 days later, that's when they finally confessed, and it was too late to save the kid. And they had to sit there with that kid knowing he was going to die because of that. So tell.
Kids, stay away from bats. And there was a case I read about several years ago, but a little girl was sleeping with her window open. A bat flew in and bit her on the toe. They didn't even know she'd been bitten, but she had rabies, and I think she survived. But can you imagine? It was just such a small bat and a small bite. They didn't even realize that's what. Well, she stubbed her toe or something. It's summertime. But no, a bat flew in the window, bit her on the toe, and I guess flew out the window, and she had rabies. And then my mom used to tell a story.
They do have. They changed it. Proactive shot for rabies. Do that? I hope so, because I mean, come on now. At this point, they should be able to.
I'm going to get me one, and I'm going to go catch me some bats for my wedding.
There you go. Bring it for the next show.
Proactive bat shots at the door.
There you go.
I'll teach them to come back, and then I'll rent them out to other people that want to have a Gothic wedding. But there's a cautionary tale my mom used to tell me, scare the daylights out of me, about a little girl that had rabies, and they had to lock her in a room. This was like back in the 1800s or something.
Oh God!
And
can you imagine?
They said she would run across the room and bash her head into the wall, and they would slip her stuff to eat under the door, and she would beg her parents, like, just give me a kiss, please kiss me. But they were afraid of her because she'd try to bite them. Now, again, that was a story my mom told me that she had heard as a little girl in the 20s and the 30s. But I used to just have that image in my head, this little girl running around, foaming at the mouth, running into the walls, and then being lucid enough to beg her parents for a kiss, but they wouldn't do it because they knew she'd bite them. Now, you talk about, no wonder I'm so messed up. I heard stuff like that as a kid,
Yeah, because they were trying to keep you out of trouble. And, when you talk about leeches, I thought about that scene from Stand By Me where the kids go swimming and they're covered in leeches.
And
that's the scene right there.
Somewhere in particular, and he passes out.
And he just passes out. That was a great movie. That was probably the
Midnight
best.
Society and I were talking about that. So many lines from that movie are just so iconic.
Suck my fat one, you cheap
You
dime store
cheap
hood.
dime hood. Who told
Yep.
you got a fat one? Biggest one in or the tri-state area, 3 counties,
Yep,
whatever it
yep,
said.
yep. It's great. I mean, so
That was
many.
specifically one of their
That's
things.
where you learn just where
Chomper,
you
sick
have
balls.
you. Yep, you have like you look where you keep all your fucks that you can give, and you just don't have any more to give.
Yeah.
You know what I
What,
mean?
you
That's
gonna
how
shoot us all? No, Ace,
Mhm.
just you.
just you. It's beautiful,
And then
absolutely
where-
beautiful. And that
where
was
the one
that
that says-
movie was as close an adaptation from the short story The Body.
That's one of the best
That's one
Stephen
of the
King
best.
adaptations ever, even if Rob Reiner
Mhm.
did direct it.
Mhm.
But
And
that one
Shawshank
where
Redemption came from that book too. It
they're
was
trying to hurry
Shawshank,
along,
Rita
and
Hayworth.
one kid says, "Come on, let's hurry." By the time we get there, the kid won't even be dead anymore. That's something about that
Man.
line cracks me up. But then
It
when
was
they
such
get
a
there
coming of age
and they
movie.
actually see the kid, and then that
Mhm.
changes everything.
Everything. And the
And then
milk money got me too. You know how, in
He buried
River Phoenix's
pennies under
character.
the porch.
Oh,
that
yeah,
the one
couldn't
you're
find
talking
him.
about? Couldn't
Well,
find him.
no,
He dug holes under
this
the
is the
porch all
one
summer
that
to find that jar of pennies.
River Phoenix's character was because his dad was no good and Eyeball, his older brother, was no good. They always just suspected him and he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And the milk money got stolen and the teacher took it and she had a brand new scarf and let him get
Let him take the
blamed
fall
for it.
for it.
And he knew he was going to be that way his
That
whole
film
life.
had humor, horror.
So
It
much.
was poignant. It was just, if you've never seen Stand By Me, watch that
Go
one
watch
too.
it.
You
Go
will
watch
love
it.
it.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a night and this has been so much fun. I mean, the ladybugs just got me, man. I'll tell you
that
what,
was,
ladybugs were
I haven't
the
laughed that
sharks
hard
scared
in
me.
a while.
The
But the
crickets
ladybugs
horrified
flying
me.
away in a black
The
cloud.
ladybugs made me laugh.
My poor dad.
That's what, the homing
That son of a bitch, Henry Field. He sold that same
trained
batch
ladybug.
of ladybugs.
That's almost as bad as the sea
dozen
monkeys,
times.
man.
Yeah, I
You
killed
know.
my sea monkeys. I forgot about them.
I killed somebody else's and blamed it on a 3-year-old. I have to pay for that for the rest of my life. I swear to God, I did. It was a terrible story. It's one of my deep, dark secrets from when I was really young. And I can't imagine why I would do such a thing, but I think I was just jealous that my sea monkeys died and hers was living. And her little brother dropped his bottle of orange juice. I swear I did this. I'm confessing here tonight. And I think I was like 8. And he was like 2. He started bottling diapers. And I took that orange juice and I put it in that water. And I went home and I didn't say anything. A couple days later, she said, "Oh, my sea monkeys died." And I never said a word. I felt so bad about it. Man, that has got to be the most underhanded, nasty, down, dirty thing. And I let the little kid take the blame.
I've got a confession to make too. I worked at a place one time and somehow they decided it was my job to water the plants that they had inside. I watered them all right with
I bet
ammonia,
you did.
salt water. And they saw me water. I mean, they didn't know what I was watering with, and the plants died. I don't know what happened. Wasn't my job to
Oh
water
my
the damn
gosh.
plants. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's the stuff we do. But Michelle, if you're out there, I swear to God, your brother didn't do it. I did it, and I'll get you some new sea monkeys. And I'm so fucking sorry.
You got a pack of sea monkeys.
I'm so sorry.
And let me tell you a cricket story. This is why I love crickets and always had to save them. Once when I was little, I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. I was out in the garage with my dad. Cricket come hopping across the floor. I mean, I stomped its guts out. And my dad shamed me. He said, "Oh, why'd you do that?" He said, "That poor little cricket, he wasn't bothering nobody, and you killed him." And I cried. And to this day, if I think about that long enough, I felt so bad at being shamed for killing that cricket that to this day, if I see a cricket in the house, I'll take it and put it out, or
I'll shoot it
give
with
it some
shotgun
water
right
in
here.
a bottle cap, or give it a piece of bread. That's why. And then I've got another story. I'd gotten a 22 rifle for my, I was 6 years old that Christmas, and we took it over to my grandmother's place, and I was going to practice stuff, and my dad said, "Look, there's a squirrel up in that tree. See if you can get him."
Oh,
and I did.
my.
I drew down on him, and I shot the poor little thing, and it didn't fall out of the tree, but it was hanging on with one paw, and it was like twisting, and then finally it let go, and that just did something to me. That is the only animal I've ever
Oh,
shot, and I will never shoot another animal. It changed me fundamentally inside. So that little squirrel,
I
he
can
was just,
understand.
being a squirrel. I
That's
shot him,
like the
and poor little Murray's in the top of a tree, a big old tree. It was in the wintertime.
It's
He's
horrible,
hanging
Steve.
on and fighting, and then he
Oh,
let go.
jeez.
I couldn't
You're
even
gonna
go
meet
look
that
at him.
squirrel on the other side.
I know it.
I'm
He's
gonna
gonna
meet
be
those
waiting
sea
on me. He's
monkeys
gonna stand there like this, like,
with
okay,
them
why'd
damn
you shoot me?
ladybugs.
You
With
son
them
of a
damn
bitch.
ladybugs. That's
But
like the
that
story from Andy Griffith when Opie shot the mama bird for
the
no reason.
bird,
He had to lay
exactly.
there and listen to the
And
baby
I
birds
just
cry. Oh
I've
God.
never shot another animal, and I never will.
What the
It
hell
did
is that?
something to me. And
Yeah.
oh, that's my phone going off.
Is
I gotta
that you?
take a pill. I gotta take a
Okay.
pill
Yep.
here.
You better
But
take a
this
pill.
time for your medication, Mr. Stockton.
Absolutely.
Put you back in the
Absolutely.
no.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I think we're out of here tonight. What are you doing this week, Steve? This has been lovely. It's
Let's see.
always lovely time.
Tomorrow night
I'm
I'm
so
on
glad we had this
with
time
First Floor Audio,
together.
Lee G. He's writing custom music for Among the Missing. We'll be
He's
over there. He does
so
a great
good.
job. He is so
You
good.
tell him he can do a song for you by Leon Russell. I'm telling you, he could do it. He's
He
got the
wasn't
voice. He's
familiar with
got the.
Leon Russell, but
If
he's
he
good on
listens to
that
that song,
piano. He
he'll
is
do it. He
entirely
can do it.
self-taught. Excuse me, he can't read a lick of music, but he has perfect pitch.
He
When
can
he
do
was
it.
little, his dad took him to a vocal coach, and at the end of the lesson, she shoved him back and said, "Here, take him. I can't do anything with him. He's got perfect pitch. I
It's
can't
beautiful
teach
voice.
him
Absolutely
anything."
beautiful. Yeah.
But I'll be there tomorrow night, and then also on Thursday we have Radio 1FA where he plays original songs, and we cut up. It's kind of like a Jim Bob and Billy in the morning or whatever, but on YouTube. And then Saturday night, that's when he does the cover versions. He is a better Elton John than Elton John, among other
He
things.
does. I
And then
love that.
Wednesday
He did Rocket Man. It was so good.
Wednesday night, I'm going to be in the hole. That's right. I'm recording with the Brothers Hole. It's like the Brothers
Yay!
Grimm for
Yeah.
the Belief Hole
Believe
podcast.
Whole
I'm
podcast. You
sitting
tell
in
him
with
Cisco
them
said
Wednesday
hi. I
night.
love them.
They're big fans of mine, good friends of mine. They shouted me out last episode, had a video
Yep.
shout out and everything. I'm really looking forward. That's one of my
It's gonna be
favorite
so good.
podcasts.
Such a good
Now
podcast.
they're not that big on the YouTube side. They just got like 12,000 subscribers. They should have
Mhm.
12 million. But over
They
on
should.
the actual audio podcast side, Apple, iTunes, and whatever over there,
Right.
they're like top 2% of all podcasts. But they are so good. And I've been corresponding with Chris.
I'm
He's my
so
favorite
glad.
one.
You
And the
tell him
way
I
it came
send my
about,
love.
I've heard them reference my books before on their show, but I was watching one of the ones where they're actually on camera, and there behind Chris, I saw a copy of one of my books. It was
Oh
this
wow.
one, and I'm watching the video, and I just see that behind
See
him. I
that
thought,
book.
wait a minute, and
That's
I
your
backed
book.
it up. I froze the frame. I put a circle around it. I sent it to Nicole of Midnight Society. She and I love Belief Hole. And I said, look what's on the shelf behind it is my book. And I
Isn't that
emailed
wonderful?
Chris and said, hey, I know you've shouted out my books and stuff, but it was nice to see it on camera. And they're like, come on the show with us. So I'm looking forward to that. The Belief Hole. Check them out. Can't recommend
Yep.
them highly
I
enough.
hit him up in a live chat a couple times and said I'd love to have you guys on, and I love the way they do their stuff. But I'll tell you why. I wanted to tell him. I said my thought is the only reason they don't have more. Well, they probably get more subscribers, but when you're listening to it, they got to take the commercials out of the middle, because when you're just about asleep, all of a sudden you get some TMU sneakers or this, and it just wakes you up out of thing, and it takes the whole,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, away.
But if you really
And they
want to
probably
enjoy
don't
the
even
full,
realize it.
if you want to enjoy the whole to its fullest extent, become a
iTunes,
member
Apple.
of their what do you call it? Their expansion, and they
Mhm.
have because they'll have a regular episode, then there's an expansion that's
Mhm.
it's kind of like their version of Patreon or whatever.
Right,
I'm a
right.
member.
They're
of
so
them. I've
good.
got every episode downloaded. I'm listening to. They talk about me a lot in some of the expansion episodes too, but they're fans of me and I'm fans of them. I fall asleep a lot of times listening to their podcast,
Mhm.
and I have some of the weirdest dreams. And I think it was Jeremy said the same. We listen to you and you give us weird dreams. So, fair play. But I can't wait. And I love
That's
their
awesome.
cinematograph that they have. It's like a still photo,
Yeah,
but parts of it are animated, or a creature will walk by or something.
yeah.
It's one of
It's
the
good
best
stuff.
produced podcasts. And then even on the video side of YouTube, it's just they are amazing. And yeah,
They
Vincent
are.
Doe, I see her over there all the time when they have a premiere. But yeah,
Yep.
they shout me out all the time. I love it. Yeah, I'm trying to say
Well, you
words
tell
with
them
my
Cisco
mouth.
sends love with my mouth.
What
My,
is
my,
the
my mouth.
moon? What
Yeah.
is the moon? Corey
Ghost
Feldman.
Dad. I like that movie.
Jeremy.
And Edna says a cricket in the house is good luck. And
It
Edna,
is. A
I
cricket
totally
on the hearth.
understand. Not for the cricket.
Could
That's all I can tell you. Not in my
be
house.
worse. It could be a
I
black
mean, I
widow
do
or a
my best. I
rattlesnake.
mean, we'll get spiders and put them outside. We'll catch things and put them outside. One time I
I
grabbed this bug that was on the TV screen when my kids were little,
Yeah.
and I grabbed it with a tissue real light, and the damn thing screamed, and I'm running. He's screaming. I'm screaming. I put him outside, and he flew off. I don't know what it was, but man, I was like, ah, it was like an I Love Lucy episode. It was
and the
crazy.
bug looked at you and, and it's like
Yeah, big time. Big time.
mutual scream there.
But on the way out, I'm gonna play those little shark facts for everybody that came in late, and a little bit of the clips and stuff I did, and the wonderful music there of Wayne Jones.
Yeah,
I love
later.
you, Steve. Good night,
Love you
everybody.
too.
Thank you,
Good night,
mods.
society. I'll call
Please
you here in just a minute.
Please hit the thumbs up. Thank you to everybody. I'd like to do a holler out to Rocky and Carrie and Bobby and all you wonderful people that listen not to the live but listen later and put these wonderful comments in. It's absolutely a pleasure to do these for you. Why you want to hear my old mouth run, I don't know, but I hope we're doing something. We're all learning together, and tonight we paid
if you learn nothing else tonight,
these
don't
wonderful
order
people.
ladybugs from Henry Fields because the son of a bitches will fly off and you'll never see
Right.
them again.
And don't get
It's
in
a
the
great
water
show.
because
This-
there's
I
sharks
love
in
this
the water.
kind of show where we just started with sharks and we ended up with ladybugs and bats and spiders.
And I couldn't tell you how the hell we got there. So if we had to go backwards, we didn't leave enough breadcrumbs.
Imagine a group of crickets riding on a shark and headed straight for you. There you go.
Yep. No, there's not enough ammo in the
Folks,
world.
go buy my books, please.
This is what we're doing next week. I know it's backwards.
If you want signed copies, I've got them in my Etsy shop. SteveStocktonBooks.com will take you by there. You can buy a signed copy of any of my books, not just these three. I'll inscribe it any way you want, except I won't write an IOU or write you into my will. But I've made some interesting inscriptions on some of them.
Oh, that's sweet.
Buy my books if you support what I'm doing there.
Thank you, sweetheart.
It's all going into my wedding fund.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to look forward to doing this. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but the 2 videos I did today, this was my day. It takes all day. It takes all day, and you look up information and what are you putting in, and pictures. I can't do everything just scary. I got to put some light in there too, because again, whether it's a demon or a shark, there are monsters out there. A lot of them are human, and you just got to be careful, but you got to keep those lights on. It's been a hard 2 weeks for me, but I'll tell you what, my lights are on and I'm here with you, and being here with you. I think all of us together, we kind of get regenerate. Is that a word?
Yeah,
Regenerate.
Okay. Cisco, her lights are on and she is home. So
and I am home.
Thank you.
I am home, and
I
love you all. Thanks for being here. Next week, again, we're going to do 1916 shark attacks happen right out here. I got something nice planned for y'all, something to see and everything else. So I love you, Steve. Midnight Society. Love to you too. And love to each and every one of you that's listening.
Call her and tell her a bedtime story. I put her to sleep every night. So how about that?
Isn't that sweet? That's sweet. This one's got to contain leeches, sharks, ladybugs, and crickets.
Homing ladybugs and bats.
There you go. Good luck with that, Midnight. All right, everybody. Good night. Be kind to sharks. Leave them alone. They'll probably leave you alone. Just stay out of the damn water, for Pete's sake.
And if you know where I get some bats, email me, SteveStockton81@gmail.com.
Guarantee they're out there.
I just want to rent them.
Yep, there you go.
Or I'll outright buy them.
There you go.
Take one home as a favor after.
I know you can. I almost did because the mosquitoes out here.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good
Love
night.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Go watch Jaws. There you go. And God bless our vets. Our Memorial Day's coming up. So tell a story to a young one about what war these guys went through. There's nothing worse than seeing a buddy go down, or having to come home and leave a man behind. It's horrible. You never get through it.
And
And it takes a special kind of man and woman to
uh,
take that oath
and
to
thank
protect your
thank a
rights.
vet. I saw something one time. It
Yeah.
was talking about World War II era vets. It said if you could read this, thank a teacher. If you're reading it in English, thank a
Thank a
veteran.
vet.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
Good night,
So
everybody.
good night, everybody. Love you. Bye.